In addition to the concentration camp murders, over 2 million Jewish people died as victims of what is known as Holocaust by bullets. Jews were rounded up, brought into forests, and forced to dig their own graves. Nazi execution units scoured the region, looking for Jews as Germany occupied more and more of Europe. One of the largest mass shootings took place at Babi Yar in Ukraine, where 34,000 Jews were gunned down in just 2 days. We call up Julia Rosner to light candle number 3 in memory of those who were shot in the Holocaust by bullets. In addition to the murder of over 6 million Jewish men, women, and children, the Nazis targeted other groups, including Catholics, political dissidents, gypsies, the disabled, Jehovah's Witnesses, priests and pastors, the LGBTQ community, Black and biracial people, educators, and non-Jewish neighbors who risked their lives trying to harbor innocent victims. At this time, I'd like to ask Shirley Bingham Sanders to please stand. Shirley, a Glastonbury resident, is the descendant of Hiram Bingham, an American diplomat who risked his career during the war to save refugees in Nazi-occupied France. He helped over 2,500 Jews and others on Nazi death lists to flee France for America in 1940 and 1941. Hiram was a member of a prominent Connecticut family. He was honored with a posthumous award on behalf of the American Foreign Service in 2002 by Secretary of State Colin Powell. We thank you, Shirley, for honoring Hiram's bravery by being here tonight. I'd now like to invite up Reverend Kate Vanderzee Glidden to come light candle 4 in honor of the courageous and righteous non-Jewish men and women who stood up to hatred and saved the lives of so many. Children were especially vulnerable to death under the Nazi regime. An estimated 1.5 children, nearly all Jewish, were murdered during the Holocaust. German forces established ghettos early in the war, and in them, Jewish children died from starvation and exposure. Because children were generally too young to be deployed as forced labor, they were particularly likely to be killed. A small number of children were saved in programs like Britain's Kindertransport, which is translated as children's transport, where they were secretly smuggled from their homes to safety in England. Some youths escaped the ghettos on their own and formed resistance units to successfully harass the German occupiers. In the concentration camp Auschwitz, Under a physician named Mengele, cruel medical experiments were conducted on children. As with all aspects of the Holocaust, it began with anti-Semitic rhetoric. Then in the 1930s, laws restricted the number of Jewish children that could attend public school. Increasing isolation led to more and more restrictions, next to ghettos and then to deportations. We'd like to invite Rabbi Carrie Tooling to light candle number 5 in memory of the 1.5 million children who lost their lives in the Holocaust.
There are still those in our world who deny that the Holocaust really happened. 1 in 5 young people in our country today think that the Holocaust is a myth. In fact, historical facts prove the Holocaust to be the most documented genocide in history. The testimony from tens of thousands of witnesses, including Allied troops who liberated the concentration camps, as well as precise documentation kept by the Nazis themselves, bears witness to the Nazi plan for mass extermination of Jews. Notably, none of the Nazi perpetrators put on trial denied the reality of the systematic murders that took place. Their most common excuse at Nazi war trials was that they were just following orders. At this time, we'd like to invite up the members of the Glastonbury Holocaust Remembrance Project Committee to light candle number 6 in our commitment to never forget. We invite up now the Glastonbury High School students who submitted essays, artwork, and poems as part of our Glastonbury Holocaust Remembrance Project contest. It's an honor to have them come up, and we ask them now to make their way to the altar to light candle number 7 as we remember the victims of all other genocides in the world. We light candle number 8 to honor our community leaders, educators, and fellow citizens who stand up to hate and injustice every day, and to honor those who work for peace in our world. We'd like to call up Connecticut State Representatives Jason Doucette, Steve Weir, and Jill Berry. From Glastonbury's Board of Education, Doug Foyle, David Peniston, Jen Jennings, and Allison Kuchar. From Glastonbury Town Council, Jen Wang and Deborah Carroll. Susan Karp, from the Board of Finance and Glastonbury Democratic Town Committee, and Marion Terry from the Glastonbury Republican Town Committee. Please come up and light candle number 8. Thank you to all who participated in our memorial candle lighting. U.S. Senator Richard Blumenthal has a long and distinguished career of public service and serves currently as the senior senator from the state of Connecticut. We are very fortunate to have his strong support for this evening's event and would like to now play a video of Senator Blumenthal's remarks.
Hi, I'm Richard Blumenthal, your United States Senator, and I am really honored and excited to join you, but sorry I couldn't be with you in person for this very, very special event. Today marks Glastonbury's inaugural Holocaust Remembrance evening. It's an occasion with deep meaning, especially for many of us who have Holocaust survivors in our families. My dad came to this country in 1935 to escape Germany and the Holocaust. He barely spoke English, had not much more than the shirt on his back, and knew pretty much nobody, and this country gave him a chance to succeed. At some point when I was an adolescent, I said to my dad that the Holocaust could never happen again, could never happen in America. And he said to me with a lot of wisdom, it can happen anywhere that hate prevails. After the Holocaust, we said, never again. And indeed, we as a nation have made great strides against hate and hate crimes. But as often happens with those kinds of advances, there are steps backward from time to time. Today, anti-Semitism is on the rise. So is Islamophobia, white supremacy, and racism. Speaking out against acts of hate and standing with our Jewish community have never been more important. Hate is contagious, but so is courage. Love and tolerance can't be legislated, but they can be elevated. The Glastonbury Holocaust Remembrance Project and Carol Fishman work every day to make sure that those words mean something, not just for the descendants of survivors here with us today, but for the entire Jewish community, and indeed for our whole state, in Glastonbury and everywhere that people of goodwill and good heart face discrimination and hatred. I want to say a particular thanks to Rabbi Lazowski. I feel like he's my rabbi. He's a Holocaust survivor. Thank you, Rabbi, for joining us tonight, and thank you for all of your amazing work and deep friendship that I cherish and treasure. Through your leadership, you've made all of us stronger, and you've made Connecticut a stronger, more inclusive state. We must continue to spread this word, elevate what we value in ourselves and our community, and do as you are tonight on this very special occasion to bring out the best in all of us, our better angels. And I thank you for letting me participate.
Our next speaker will be Julia Rosner. Julia grew up in Levittown, New York, and she and her husband Bob have been residents of Glastonbury for 30 years. After raising her 3 sons, Julia became a realtor in town. Julia is the daughter of Thea and Jack Rumstein, who with great strength, fortitude, and luck survived the Holocaust. Julia will now join us to share their moving and emotional story.
Thank you, Carol, and thank you all for being here for this very important and special evening. I am the only child of 2 Holocaust survivors. Both my mother and father were from Vienna, Austria, and were in concentration camps. They were teenagers during that time and didn't meet each other until after those horrific years, so they met after the war. My dad was taken from his home in 1939 by the Nazis when he was 17 years old, and was primarily in the notorious concentration camps Buchenwald and Auschwitz. He was in these camps for 5.5 years, which was miraculous, as almost no one survived for that long. He was forced to do labor, including digging ditches, moving boulders, carrying logs, all this from early in the morning until the sun went down. He was given almost nothing to eat, only some brown soup with a small piece of bread. He was so hungry and thirsty that he would sometimes drink muddy water off the ground, eat snow, and even pull weeds, as the roots offered some nutrition. He was always starving. These were extermination camps. That was their purpose. 6 million Jews were gassed to death, and then their bodies burned. When they arrived in those train cattle cars, they did not know their destiny. The old people, the sick, and the young, meaning babies, toddlers, young children, many were immediately gassed. They were told to undress because they were going to take a shower, but it wasn't a shower. Deadly gas came out of the shower heads, and that was their end. After Steven Spielberg produced and directed the movie Schindler's List, he started an organization called Shoah. He knew that the remaining Holocaust survivors were getting older, so he had professional interviewers ask them questions and got them to tell their stories so their horrific experiences wouldn't die along with them. My parents were both interviewed and filmed in 1996. I have 2 hours of tape for each one of them. I want to share a few clips from their interviews. The first is my mother, who talks about what life was like when Hitler and the Nazis marched into Austria in 1938. She was 10 years old at the time. She talks about how the Nazis were welcomed with open arms by the Austrian people, how the Jewish stores were all closed down, how she had to wear a yellow Star of David on her clothing and wasn't allowed to go anywhere, how she experiences Kristallnacht, where synagogues were burned to the ground. Let's have a look.
So the war started already in 1939, and then he went on to Czechoslovakia and to France and to all over. And I remember there were all the store. First of all, flags all over, all the time, you know, the swastikas all over. And then we had to get the Jewish star. Then we really couldn't go anyplace because then we had to be identified as being Jewish. I remember sitting on a windowsill and watching the people go by and be terrible, terrible envious about everything that I saw, that I couldn't go anyplace, couldn't play outside. They also started very much harassing us and all the Jews, because in the winter they came and picked up my father and my mother and then asked to shovel the snow. We had to shovel snow for hours, and the people were standing around and laughing. I remember I had a pair of boots, and they didn't take it, but they said, we could use those boots, you know, we would use these boots, but they didn't take them away. But I was afraid I will have to go barefoot in the snow. And all in all, the people were hateful, absolutely hateful. And the one who were not being, we couldn't hear them, we couldn't see them. In one way, they were afraid, you know, because we had a maid from before, somebody who cleaned and helped clean, and she couldn't talk to us. I remember she came sometimes at night, you know, and brought us something, and then, you know, all at night so that nobody could see her. It was terrible times, very terrible, and it went and got worse and worse, and of course, then we had the Kristallnacht, you know, when the synagogues were burned. That was November 9th. They say it's 10th. I remember November 9th. No, November 10th. There's a dispute when it was.
Right.
In 1939. And the Kristallnacht.
What do you remember about it?
I remember we had a synagogue very close by. The Patzmanitten synagogue. It's called Patzmanitten Temple. I saw it going up in flame. Went up. It was a very, very well-known synagogue, and we went to the synagogue, and all the people from the neighborhood went to the synagogue, and it went up. I mean, there were a few others in the district, but this was really, we could see it because it was in very close to us. And again, the people were happy and laughing that this can happen.
In 1942, my mother, her brother, and my grandparents were deported to Theresienstadt in Czechoslovakia. It was a temporary holding place until people were put on those cattle cars for days. In darkness, nothing to eat, no place to relieve yourself, not knowing where they were going and what would happen to them. Well, they were being transported to Auschwitz. In this next clip, my mother describes what happened when they arrived at Auschwitz. The cattle cars were opened, and the Nazi SS officers immediately started the selection process. Who shall live and who shall die? But the people did not know their fate. The young, healthier-looking people were told to get in one line, and the people were told and the other people with babies and young children and those who were older were told to get in another line where they would be given a ride to the camp. In this clip, my mother talks about how she ended up actually saving my grandmother's life. Let's take a look.
Nobody prevented it. And then we stood in line, and then the selection started, you know. Again, we didn't know what it is about. We saw us switching, but we didn't know. A row of SS, you know, was standing there. And then I heard in the middle was Mengele, Dr. Mengele. He was part of the selecting people. And then, of course, then through a loudspeaker, they said, the camp is far away, I mean, we were 3 days in this miserable situation. The camp is far away. Old people, young people, people who are sick or are very tired and cannot walk, can be on what do you call it, a truck, can go on the truck, and we take them to the camp. So most of the old people and people with little children, that's how Gertie's sister and a little boy got killed. She was only in her 20s, and she walked him, and then it started, left, right, left, right, left, right. And when they came to my mother, he said, "Gesund? I mean, are you healthy?" She said, "I have a cold," or something like that. My mother was that time 43 years old or something. So he sent her to the left. I don't know, it is a dispute. I thought it was the right. People, when I hear now, they say left, and I thought they sent it to the right side, and the people to stay alive stayed on the left side. So he sent my mother that way and me that way. And when I saw all these people going, the older people for me, when somebody was 40 was old. And so behind them, I just instinctively grabbed her arm, and started running this way. And I said, I don't go where the old people go. Just instinctively, we walk. And I started running with her. And that saved her life. She was already on the other side. I didn't know that. This was just instinct.
I want to share a glimmer of hope in humanity story amidst all this evil that my father experienced. My father had befriended a Dutch prisoner of war in Auschwitz. This Dutch Christian man was in the underground trying to fight the Nazis, but had been caught along with others. He worked as an orderly in the prison infirmary. Non-Jewish prisoners were given better jobs, and overall were treated better in the concentration camps. Don't misunderstand, they weren't treated well, they were just treated better. My father came down with rheumatic fever, which would ordinarily be a death sentence for a Jewish man. He was so sick. Well, this Dutch prisoner of war got my father into a bed in the infirmary where he was working, and where the sign on the head of the bed indicated, instead of a Jew, that he was a political prisoner. And this enabled my father to get medicine and start to recover. This man saved my father's life. He literally risked his own life to save my father's. This Christian man would have been immediately shot to death had this been discovered. I am forever grateful to him. If he didn't do this courageous act, I wouldn't be standing here today. My father connected with him after the war, and my parents sent presents to Holland, to him and to his family every year for Christmas. I want to share this last clip taken from my dad's Shoah interview. Let's listen.
We are thankful for the United States and the Army and all those people who are fighting. If it wouldn't be for them, we wouldn't be here today.
It's been 50 years now since the war ended. How do you think that your experiences during the war have affected your life since your liberation?
Well, like I said, I'm thankful for every day that I'm still alive, that I can enjoy life to the best of our ability. That means all my family. And material things is not that important. It's love, understanding, and compassion to your fellow man. Because you see what's going on now in the world. It's starting all over again. People didn't learn. People didn't learn. No, leave it up to the younger generation. See what they can do. Hopefully. Never should a thing like this happen again. That millions of people have to die because of one madman.
Did what you saw and what you went through in the war?
Words of wisdom, for sure. I'm not sure what was going on in 1996 when this was filmed. I meant to Google it. But clearly my father was upset about the way human beings were treating each other. So my parents met after the war and started a new life in their beloved United States of America. Despite all the horror they both experienced, they lived a very happy life, grateful every day for their freedom and life's blessings. My father lived to be 95 years old, and my mother 91. I feel like maybe God gave them some extra years for the loss of so many years in their youth. As my father said, never again, and we must never forget, which is why we're here tonight. Thank you all so much for listening, and again, for being here.
Thank you, Julia. We're going to have a slight change in our program, and I'd like to invite up Alan Lazowski to please introduce his father, Rabbi Philip Lazowski, our keynote speaker.
It's an honor for me to be here tonight to introduce this famous rabbi. I'm a little biased because I'm his son, but he is the greatest spiritual leader in our community in Connecticut for the last 68 years. And my mom and dad have an amazing story of their survival of the Holocaust. And when you hear it tonight, you'll believe that anything is possible in life, that we should all never ever give up. And when we have a chance to bring our humanity to the moment, we should all do it. And Dad, you have been an inspiration to our entire community. He's Rabbi Emeritus of 2 congregations. He's been the chaplain at the Hartford Police for over 50 years, the chaplain at the Hartford Healthcare System for over 50 years. He just addressed the Senate. He's a chaplain of the state Senate yesterday, which he's done for 25 years. And you have definitely fulfilled your mother's dreams and wishes when she told you the last time she saw you that she wants you to tell the world to never forget and make our world a better place. So with that, I give you Rabbi Philip Lazowski.
Thank you, my son, for your kind words. And thank you so much for inviting me to speak to you about genocide. It is heartwarming to see so many young people here today to learn about genocide. On June 13, I will be 94 years old. So everyone here is considered young to me. Genocide is a systematic annihilation of racial and cultural group. So we are here to learn history. We are here to learn about the Holocaust. I am a Holocaust survivor. and my life. So as you look at me and hear me, you'll be able to tell your children and your grandchildren that you once met a Holocaust survivor and heard his story. You know, there are very few survivors left over alive. In about 5 or 6 years, will hardly be any Holocaust survivors. So we are living at a time where have never been more incomprehensible. The whole world has become a huge arsenal of weapons of destruction. Mankind is divinely and hopelessly by an impenetrable war of terrorism and fear. To diffuse our frustration and anger, anti-Semitism lies are so prevalent today. Our college campuses throughout the human mind and throughout the country are hotbeds of anti-Semitism and hate. The human mind can be poisoned through indoctrination. Words and images are powerful. Say something enough many times, show picture repeatedly, and people start believing it. What they see and what they hear. This is called propaganda. And we can have a strong impact on the human mind. It can influence people to blame others for their problems. It can cause people to act in unsavory ways towards others. It can sway whole nations to be willing accomplices in mass extermination. The Nazi knew the value of propaganda, and he successfully sold it to the German people. It is said, those who forget history are doomed to repeat it. And those who are ignorant of the history, others will write for them. And those who are not conscious of their past have no assurance of the future. This is a reminder how important it is to study and know your history. Winston Churchill said, the longer you can look back, the further you can see forward. And Edmund Burke said, all that is necessary for the people to triumph of evil is to do good men nothing. I firmly believe that only by studying the past, we can build a safer and sound tomorrow. If you want to believe in a peaceful world, you have to start by learning from the past. In 1958, Martin Luther King said, "He who accepts evil without protesting against it, it is actually cooperating with it." We cannot sit idle by. We must take action. Action. Action is important. My story is a lesson to show how Nazi brutality murdered and oppressed a civilization, and the world stood by and did not care. And did not care. This all began on January 30th, 1930, when Adolf Hitler became Chancellor of Germany. This was the first day of the deadliest chapter in the history of mankind, when the Supreme Commander of the Allied Forces, General Dwight Eisenhower, who eventually became our president, found the victims of the death camps in Dachau. He insisted there will be as many photographers taken possible so the German people from surrounding villages will be shown the camps and even bury the dead. It did this because he himself said, and I quote, "Get it all on record now. Get the films now. Get the witnesses, because somewhere down the tracks of history, some bastard will get up and say, this will never happen." It is now 85 years since World War II began. The Nazis and their allies and collaborators murdered 6 million Jewish people in a genocide known as the Holocaust. Now Iran and others are claiming that the Holocaust never happened. This is a myth. It is imperative that this part of history can never be forgotten. I am a living proof. I am a survivor. This is why I wrote down my story in my first book called Fate and Destiny. By learning about genocide, and particularly about the Holocaust, we can ensure that the world will never again have to face such unforgivable acts of inhumanity. Each survivor has a different story to tell. Each survivor has a different experience to express. Some are consumed with rage, hostility, and anger. Others feel the pain and the anguish. I would like to tell my story of survival. I'm the firstborn son of a family with 4 boys and a girl. When the Germans came to our town, Delica, I was 11 years old. It was in 1941. Most of the villages, including our home, was burned. They devised all methods of torture, as running of camels. The first, they killed the intelligentsia, the brightest and the most respected members of the community, including our beloved Rabbi Shabtai Fine. They took all the gold and silver, diamonds, and other valuables. They took hostages with the intention of obtaining even more of our possessions. And then, of course, it wasn't enough for them to kill them all. Within a few months, we were forced to relocate in Gential Ghetto. The conditions were so beyond extreme crowding with filth all around us, and with the basic necessities of food, of water, or even toilets were never there. We know our days were numbered, and so we built a hidden cave. As the oldest child, I offered to conceal the entrance of the cave. After my family was safe inside, I closed the cave very carefully, make sure that nobody would notice the entrance. However, as soon as I finished covering, I did not have time to hide myself. So a Nazi spotted me. And he said to me, "What are you doing here?" I said, "I forgot my coat." Where you going? You don't need a coat. You keep on running because I'll shoot you right now." So I kept on running. And I came to a place, the cemetery, with a population of thousands of people with pallid faces and frightened hearts, encompassed by sheer panic. And we were surrounded by Nazis. Their bayonet droned. The Jews cried in agony. Yes, in agony. Most reached the heavens. Little babies were pierced with the bayonets and thrown around like a football. I saw a woman breasting a baby. The Nazi came with the bayonet, pierced the baby from the breast, and threw it like a football. I couldn't believe my eyes what I see as an 11-year-old boy. We were scared in our souls, wounded in our hearts, wounded in our spirits, wounded in our attitudes. And then I saw a selection begin. What was the selection? The Nazis were masters of deception. They used all kinds of gimmicks to cover their intentions. Jews were weak from starvation and totally isolated from the outside world. We were told they were being sent to work centers. In reality, we are being sent to the slaughter. Innocent Jewish children, women, and elderly, thousands of them went to death rather to abandon their families. We were assembled in the marketplace, expecting to send to work to another village. That was normal selection. And the word selection was simply by the Nazi term for choosing who was to live and who was to die. Those chosen to live, temporarily were men and women capable of hard labor, and those could be of use to the Nazis, such as doctors, nurses, tailors, and cobblers. I stood in line waiting to be sent to the death, where women and the children stood waiting to die. I soon realized that the only children who are going to survive this day were the children of those selected to be of use to the Nazis, were their parents. My turn was rapidly approaching. I looked to see if there was anyone I knew who might somehow help me. There was no one. My only solace was that my family was not among the people jammed in the marketplace of this heroic, or of this horrific day. I decided my only chance was to find someone willing to pass me off as their child. Someone would be among those chosen to live to send me to the left. But who? As the time moved, I passed the dead body as a young man. I saw elderly two couples dancing together. They went off their mind, seeing what is happening in this particular place. But suddenly, I saw a woman standing with two girls. Her daughters were 1-7 and 1-5. And I was 11 years old. She was holding a nursing certificate. That meant life. I went over to her and asked her very kindly if she'd be willing to say that I'm her son. She looked at me with charity and made her face glow with gracefulness and said, quote, "If you wish to go through with us, you may. If the Nazis will let me live with 2 children, maybe they'll let me live with 3 children." I took hold of her hand and her arm, and she showed her certificate to the Nazi, and where we were redirected to the left side, to the line of life. As we crossed the line, I asked the woman her name. She told me it was Miriam Rabinowitz. She saved my life. So we joined the ranks of the fortunate, at least today. I thanked her graciously for her wonderful and kind mitzvah that she performed to save a little old 11 boy. And I thank the woman who so gracefully saved my life. And as soon as we were sent back to our homes, I raced back, I found out the fate of my family. Suddenly I saw 4 bodies lying near my home. My hands were unfortunately very trembled. The reason is, of course, that I saw the bodies and I began to realize what's facing me, that the feet were numbed and a wave of dizziness swept me and I collapsed. As I woke, I saw my mother standing next to me. Was this my imagination or it was real? And lo and behold, it was real. My mother embraced me so tightly that I've never forgotten that moment. Excuse me. A few weeks passed by, and one day I was looking out of my window. I recognized the lady who saved my life, walking with one of her daughters. I cried out to my mother, "Look, Mother, this is the lady who saved my life." My mother went out and blessed her and thanked her for doing a noble thing. And she praised her and she hoped she will be able to survive this Holocaust. Within a few months, it was Judenrein. Judenrein in English means nobody to be alive. Everybody dies. Nobody survives. We again went into the bunker to hide. For 5 days we were hiding ourselves. On the 6th day we were found. Oh God. We were taken out. We couldn't see, we were blinded. The reason is the sun was shining so brightly. We were in the cave in the darkness that we didn't see the light for so many days. And the sun was blinding after so many days in absolute darkness. And my mother said, "Children, that's the end. If you can save yourself, do it." My middle son, my middle brother, of course, the son was Abram. He was a very sporting fellow, so he started to run. As soon as he started to run, the Germans shot him right in the back in front of us. Then they were going into the house to look for more valuables, interested only in gold and this. We were not rich. We didn't have any money or gold or these kind of things. So we started, mother said, now is the time to hide. So my brother Robert snuck away to hide in a outhouse while they were searching our home, and I interrogating my mother about any valuables as it was may have. I hid myself in the garden under the small bush with my face buried to the earth. I could hear everything that was going on. They took my mother and the two children away. So not having anything else, I began to search for my father. As I approached the place where my father worked, a huge dog started to bark. He barked fervorously, attracting the attention of the Nazi. Suddenly, I was apprehended, and they asked me my name, and I told them, my name is Lazarski, for many centuries. He took his hand, and he gave me such a smack in my face that I fell down triple, lying there. He said, "You are lying. You are a Jew." I said, "Yes, I am a Jew, but my name is Lazarski." Well, he took me by my neck and brought me to a movie house. A theater, where the rest of the Jews from the roundup awaited their fate. As I weaved through the throngs of people, I discovered my mother. Aaron and Rachel were among the people in the theater. The conditions were abominable. In the kino, no food, no water, no toilets. When the 2 days, the trucks appeared. And we know what the trucks means. When the trucks come, it is death. So they started to pack tightly the Jews like sardines in the trucks to await their final destination. And when the third truck came, it was our turn. And we are on the second floor. The windows were closed. So my mother took a chair and hit the window. And he said to me, "Finally, I want you to jump from the second floor. I want you to be somebody. I want you to tell the world what is going on. And I want you to live." I said, "Mom, I don't want to jump without you." Mother looked at me and said, "How can I jump with two children? I was squashing to death, and I am not able to from 2 floors to jump." As soon as the word she was able to jump, she pushed me out of the window, and I fell on the floor there. And I fell on the grass into a patch of tall grass to lie there in disbelief. Suddenly, I see another mother does. She took her boy, 8 years old, and she throws it from the window right next to me. My mother looked from the window and said, "Be strong." And I said, "Ma, come with me." And she says, "No." As soon as the guard turned, I just want to make a point over here, which is some people are kind and understanding even from the Nazis, which means a German soldier on the corner with his machine gun heard us fall. He looked at me, he looked at my mother at the window and turned the other way. As soon as the guard turned his back, we made a run for it. We headed back to the ghetto. I didn't know where to go, but God gave me the idea to go back to the ghetto. And the ghetto was my lucky day. I saw hundreds and hundreds of people robbing all the homes. And I saw a man carrying a big piece of furniture. And I asked him, "Can I help you?" "Yes, of course." I spoke to him in Russian, and I said to him, "Are there any Jews left over?" Oh, he says, "Nothing, no more, finished." "By the way, are there any Jews alive somewhere?" Oh, he says, "Yes, about 25 kilometers from here, there is a city called Dvorets. Over there are 10,000 Jews building an airfield." When I heard this, I said to the little boy, "Let us run." We ran into the corn, and we made, the corn was quite high and served as an excellent cover. It's one of the longest days of my life. The boy's name was Abe Goldstein, and he was 8 years old. At the daybreak, he decided to go back to the ghetto to be killed. He said to me, "Since my mother and father are dead, I don't want to be alive. I want to be dead." I said, "Your mother threw you out from the window to live just like my mother did. Why are you going back to the ghetto to die?" He says, "I don't want to live without mother and father." I grabbed him by his neck and I hold on tight, and he didn't listen to me, and he ripped away from me. And I said to him, "Abe, don't go, don't go." And suddenly he turned back to me and says, "Okay, I'll listen to you." Well, he changed his mind, and we're trying to survive. We headed toward Dvorets in search of any living Jews. On the way, we were robbed of the shoes. We were forced to continue our journey. Barefooted, eventually we reached Dvorets. A feeling of panic overtook me as I entered the barbed wire. Walls surrounded the ghetto. I thought that would be the end. That would be the end. I felt alone, on the run, like a fugitive. Then, through another miracle, I found my brother alive in Dvorets. Life in Dvorets ghetto was horrific. No food, no mother, no father, filthy conditions, orphans scrambling to stay alive. After good news came to me that my father is still alive. Living in the woods we had a new hope to live, a new lease for life. And within a few weeks, my uncle came to the ghetto and took us out of the forest. They brought us into the woods, and we were reunited with Father, starting our journey to survive in the woods for over 2 years. The story of the Jewish underground, as I know, it has lived as a child, dealt with various manifestations of courage and heroism. It is a story of faith, of self-sacrifice, and superhuman endurance. The Jew had no chance of victory over the Nazi, and yet continued to fight. He continued to do anything in his power to sabotage or even slow down the enemy. The Jews stretched minutes into days and to days into weeks in order to prolong their existence. They did all they could to deny Hitler his dream of totality, removing the Jews from the face of the earth. The Jews survived because he was able to develop the spiritual stamina to suffer the rigors and the unnatural existence in the middle of this horrific genocide. Jews have all been fair game. We always were the victims. Although these brave resistant fighters made substantial contribution to the defeat of Hitler, much of their story remains untold. Some of their most important and courageous exploits are known to just a few survivors. They have become, in effect, a forgotten army. The exact number of Jews who fought underground with the partisans will probably never be determined, but close to 15,000 served in partisans formation. Under Soviet command, another 10,000 to 20,000 fought with partisans in the Baltic, Poland, Czechoslovakia, and Yugoslavia. The Jews played a considerable part in the partisans' fighting and the resistance movement. By 1943, some Jewish partisans units had acquired a fairly advanced level of organization and were relatively well armed. We fought back the spirit of the Maccabees. We acquired ammunition, dynamite, railroads, and burned bridges. You could see the fires from far away. Women played a very important role in the Jewish resistance. Some assumed military command positions. There are many stories to tell about Jewish underground. The fear, the horrific living condition, the extreme colds, 20 to 30 below zero. There are stories of captured Nazi claiming their innocence. There are even stories of children being born in this unnatural world, of hiding from their murderers who hate them simply to being alive. I would like to tell you a story. We were a group of 26 people. We were 2 miles from where the shooting and fighting took place. We were sitting very quietly when suddenly a baby started to cry. The echo of the woods could be heard for miles. The mother was forced to place her hand upon the child's mouth in order to shield its cries from giving away our hiding spot and sentencing us to a certain death. She did not realize when the child began to turn blue and stop breathing. Regardless, the Nazis were quickly approaching and were forced to abandon our hiding spot. Thinking that the baby is unfortunately dead, and what did she do? And not breathing, she left under the bush, and we all ran. Towards evening, when the sun was setting and the shooting had stopped, we went back to bury the baby. Lo and behold, the baby's alive. When we then swore that no matter what, he would never leave behind the baby, or anyone else for that matter. The baby survived and is now a lawyer in New York. Eventually, I came to America, this blessed land. Not knowing the language, I enrolled the evening classes at Thomas Jefferson High School in Brooklyn. I worked from 3 in the morning loading frozen eggs into trucks to be delivered to bakers. When I graduated high school in 2 years, I was accepted to Brooklyn College because anybody has over a B average goes to Brooklyn College free. I didn't have money to pay anyway. So I went to Brooklyn College and the Yeshiva University. The custom in Yeshiva is one of the boys in the class get married, the whole class is invited. So I invited to the class. I didn't want to go. First of all, I didn't have enough clothes. Second of all, I never danced. Wasn't going to sit like a dummy. But they insisted that I should go. So I went. So I went there and I sat down at the table. Next to me was a beautiful young woman who I started to talk with. I didn't ask her to dance. So I noticed she has a Polish accent and where she comes from, and her name was Gloria, and she was a survivor as well. Then I told her from a small village I come from called Belica. And she said, "Oh my God, my best friend once saved a little boy from Belica when was in a selection line facing death." She continued a bit to tell the story. And then I cried out to her saying, "I am the boy. Where does the family live? And what is their name?" She told me the same name, Miriam Rabinowitz. And where do they live? In Hartford, Connecticut. I picked up the phone and I called the Rabinowitz family. The people told me, the lady who answers the phone, "There are 6 Rabinowitzes, which one you want?" I says, "Take the first one." She took the first one, and it was the right one. The lady answered the phone, and she said, "Who's calling?" I says, "I am the boy that you saved. You are Miriam Rodriguez?" She says, "Yes." Well, guess what? We've all grown up as the story continues. I fell in love with one of our daughters, Ruth, and 7-year-old in the selection line, and I was lucky enough to marry her in December of 1955. This December we'll be married for 69 years. And in our family today, we have 3 wonderful sons. One of them is so. The daughters-in-laws, 3 daughters-in-laws, wonderful, like my own daughters, and 8 grandchildren, and the past May, I was able to officiate for the first marriage of my grandchild. Friends, by the grace of God, I was able to survive. I am blessed and lucky to be standing before you to share my story with you. I saw death, starvation, and torture. I lived through starvation and disease. After the incredible 2.5 years in the woods, I never got over the pain of seeing people die. The best I could do is to get used to it. Time does not heal all wounds, only the minor ones. The real pain of losing a loved one never goes away. Our memories sweeten or lessen the bitterness, but the loneliness is still there. The horrors of the Holocaust must never be forgotten. And because Hitler's dream went unfulfilled, our second and third generation, an organization like the Voices of Hope, are in place to continue educating people, preserving memory, and making sure through books, films, memorials, and museums that the legacy will continue on, to love and not to hate, to make this world a better place. The lives of our martyrs can never be forgotten. We must never forget their suffering, their courage, and their faith. If we do, then martyrdom shall have been in vain. Our martyrs went to their death with dignity and heroism. We must live with dignity and self-respect. We must never forget the depth of the degradation which evil people can descend. Injustice, prejudice, hatred, and ignorance are the ingredients which produce tyrants and tyranny, inhumanity, and tragedy. We must be concerned wherever and whenever these evils rear their ugly heads. We must do everything in our power to resist them, to eliminate them from our midst, for they are the breeding grounds of destruction and death. We must never again remain silent. We are witness to man's inhumanity to man. Wherever it occurs, we must strive to become intelligent enough, understanding enough, concerned enough, and committed. Who among us can ever imagine 6 million people brutally murdered? None of us has ever experienced such a multitude of human beings. But it's not only the numbers that confound us. It is more so the incredible cruelty, the inhumanity, the utter bestiality, the pure evil which their lives were taken. We must never forget the depth of the degradation to which evil people can descend. Injustice, prejudice, hatred, and ignorance are the ingredients which produce tyrants and tyranny, inhumanity, and tragedy. We must be concerned wherever this evil rear their ugly heads. We must do everything in our power to resist them, to eliminate them from our midst, for they are the breeding ground of destruction and death. We must never again remain silent. We are witnesses to man's inhumanity, to man wherever it occurs. We must strive to become intelligent, understanding, concerned, and committed. The great tragedy of the 6 million is a warning to our fellow men. We must serve as a constant reminder to love and not to hate, to show faith and courage. Then our lives may acquire a new meaning to this generation and to generation to come. Do you like to live in a peaceful world? Don't be a bystander. Act now. Act now. Act now. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Rabbi Lazowski, for your inspiring talk. Please give a warm welcome to Glastonbury High School student Daniel Coggeshall as he performs Ili Ili on the cello. Thank you, Daniel, for that beautiful rendition. Next, I would like to welcome back Elizabeth Berman and committee member Jackie Somberg. They worked tirelessly to create our student contest in order to engage the youth in how hate can lead to violence. Please join me up on the stage.
Good evening. Thank you for coming. And can I do part of my speech? Yeah. Okay. We're recognizing the time, and so we're going to consolidate a little bit. President Barack Obama said, "The future belongs to young people with an education and the imagination to create." The 11 high school students who are residents of Glastonbury and chose to make the time to create high-quality responses are just those students. These students not only use their imaginations, but they use their time, experiences, and education to respond to a contest question that read as follows: drawing on your opinion, knowledge, and experience, what action can individuals and groups take to diminish prejudice and hatred which lead to discrimination, violence, divisiveness, and anti-Semitism? The young people here tonight recognize that education is crucial, that hatred is a terrible thing, and that there is much that can be done to counter hatred and discrimination. Each student responded to these points in their essays, in their works of art, or in a poem. All are on display in Schultz Hall. We sincerely hope you will go to see their incredible work at the conclusion of this event. Before we introduce our students, we would like to thank our judges who worked tirelessly to evaluate all 11 wonderful submissions.
Thank you, Jackie. Right now, we'd like to call up the students that are here. So if they would please come up. We're waiting for, yes, thank you. Here they come. We're going to introduce them as soon as they make their way. Yeah, that's fine. Come on up. You guys might want to just stand in a line here. Okay. As they hear their name, they are going to stand and come forward. So I'm going to ask Ione Chakraborty to come on up. Okay, Ione may have had to leave. I think she had another commitment. Audrey Clark. There you are, Audrey. Lila Cohen. Yep. Lauren Filial. Trevor Ford, Riva Narayanan, and Brian Ramos. If you would join me in giving these students a round of applause. These are our special recognition honorable mention, and later this evening we will give them their awards, and we're very excited to honor them with that. And we have several winners now that we would like to have step forward, please. And Jackie is going to tell you and tell them, because they do not know which prize they have received.
Nani Yabora, who is not on the altar tonight, we would like to call up next Samantha Edelheit and Ella Somberg for receiving their second place awards. And I apologize because I did not say that Nana earned third place award.
Unfortunately, he is actually home sick tonight, and we're very upset about that he couldn't be here. And now we would like to introduce our first prize winner.
Would Manila Mukathara please step forward to accept?
Students, we could not be more proud of you. Thank you. We'll see you at the reception, and we have lots to give you.
Congratulations to all the contest winners. You should all be very proud of yourselves, and to all of you who submitted. You can see all of the submissions at the reception. We've had to pivot a little bit with the program, and I'd like to now introduce the GHS Madrigal Chorus, directed by Dr. Ethan Nash. They will perform two beautiful songs for us, Even When God Is Silent by Michael Horvitz, and Lo V'Chayil by Elliot Levine. Let's give a round of applause to the choir. incredible, and now they have to go home and study for their AP exams tomorrow. So really, let's give them another warm hand for doing that, for coming out tonight. Okay, just 2 more things, people, I promise. We're gonna have a brief talk by Rachel Donnell. Rachel grew up in New York and has taught special needs students for over 30 years. Her parents, aunts, and uncles were Holocaust survivors. She feels it's very important for people to learn about the Holocaust and the relevant lessons from that horrific event. Mrs. Donnell has been speaking about the Holocaust in schools and in communities and is thrilled to speak tonight.
Good evening. It's an honor to be here to share my family's Holocaust experiences with you, and also to share the lessons that we should be learning that are so important in our day to day. Both of my parents were Holocaust survivors. My father was in hiding, and then he was in Majdanek concentration camp. He was not able to talk about it at all until he was 75 years old. As I was growing up, I would hear him screaming at night. He'd have nightmares thinking about the Holocaust. However, I grew up hearing my mother talk about being in Auschwitz. She would talk to us at the kitchen table, and I would listen. In my mom's family, there were 5 children, ages 8 to 17. There were 4 sisters and a little brother, Moishi. My mother was 16 years old. Please now, take a few minutes to clear your mind, or perhaps close your eyes. Please try to imagine. Try to imagine you are 16 years old. You've been thrown out of your home at gunpoint. You've seen people die all around you, in the ghetto, in the cattle car, and now in Auschwitz. You are lying in bed on a wooden board with 11 other people. Your mother was killed. You saw her body's ashes coming out of the tall chimney. You're scared, terrified each minute, each day. You have a number branded on your arm. You are no longer a person with a name. You are now just a number. Your hair has been shaved everywhere. You ask yourself, how have I become an enemy of the Nazis? You are trying to be strong, but all you want is to be with your beloved mother and cry in her arms. That is how my mother described how she felt all those years during the Holocaust. So now please be present again, or perhaps open your eyes. My hope is that we will share with others what we have learned together tonight. And hopefully, together, we can say, never again. Together, we can say, never again. Thank you for being here and taking an interest in a not too distant historical event, the Holocaust. Thank you all.
Thank you, Rachel. I really appreciate that. That was beautiful. Thank you for sharing your story. Lastly, Rabbi Dr. Carrie Tooling is the spiritual leader at Congregation Kol Chaverim here in Glastonbury. She was ordained in 2004 and received her PhD in 2013. Please let's have a warm welcome for Rabbi Tooling.
So to bring our evening to a close, I wanted to read for you a poem. And the poem is by Jessica Greenbaum, and it's titled, "The Yellow Star That Goes With Me." This is written by someone who is a child of a survivor. Sometimes when I'm thirsty, I mean really dying of thirst for 5 minutes, sometimes when I board a train, sometimes in December when I'm absolutely freezing for 5 minutes, sometimes when I take a shower, sometimes in December when I'm absolutely freezing, sometimes when I reach from stream to towel, when the bed has soft blue sheets, sometimes when I take a shower for 20 minutes, the white tiles dripping with water, sometimes when I reach from stream to towel, when the bed has soft blue sheets, sometimes when I split an apple, or when I'm hungry, painfully hungry, for 20 minutes. The white tiles dripping with water as the train passes Chambers Street. We're all crammed in like laundry. Sometimes when I split an apple, or when I'm hungry, painfully hungry, for half an hour. Sometimes when I'm on train, as it passes Chambers Street, we're all crammed in like laundry. It's August, and the only thing to breathe is everybody's stains, for half an hour. Sometimes when I'm on a train, or just stand along the empty platform. It's August. The only thing to breathe is everybody's stains. Sometimes when I board a train, or just stand along the empty platform. Sometimes when I'm thirsty, I mean really dying of thirst. The intergenerational trauma follows us into the generations, and we engage in this memorial to remember and honor the dead and to name the feelings that haunt us still. The world can slip into unimaginable brutality in a generation. Unimaginable brutality in a generation, but in the positive sense, the reverse is also true. It can climb out of it as well. What is needed there is a cautious but tenacious idealism. We should not let what is eclipse the view of what ought to be. We, as a nation, can do better than this. Blessed is Adonai, our God, who gives us the power to transcend ourselves. Amen.
Thank you, Rabbi Tooling. Thank you all for being here tonight for our inaugural event. It's been a pleasure. I've been overwhelmed by the amount of people who came, and I hope that you all got a lot out of this evening tonight, and I hope that you will all join us after the event for refreshments in Schultz Hall. And I know you had candles. We didn't have time to do that, so if you don't mind, just please return them on your way out. Thank you all for coming.